Men, what do you think will happen when you stay for long without having any sexual activity? And better yet, how long have you ever stayed without sex, and what changes did you notice in your body? We might be curious to know what actually you felt in the comment region. What do you think will happen to the sperms? What do you think will happen to the actual size of the penis? And what they say about prostate? Is it true? Like when you don't have sex, when you don't have ejaculation here and there, you increase chances of getting prostate cancer? We are going to cover that in this video. Also, do you know that you marginally increase chances of getting a girl when you stay for long without ejaculation? I know, it's quite interesting, but you're going to see how that can be. And again, dolphins are other animals, mammals, that also enjoy sex. Just they do that for fun. So they can even have sex with other dolphins that are already pregnant, and they know that they're pregnant. It's actually very interesting to know that they also enjoy sex. Anyway, what happens to your sperms? Nothing. Nothing. They stay the same. But something else will happen. You see, sperms, let's go to vasectomy. Vasectomy, you cut the tube leading from the testis going out. Know the difference between semen and sperms. Sperms are the most important things that you're going to find in semen. So you have semen, which is a composition of so many things. We have fluids inside, we have sugars, we have phosphates inside, and then we have the sperms, which are the seeds. So the semen is there to maintain or to keep the sperms alive until fertilization happens. So the sperms are inside the semen. The sperms are usually produced in the testes, and they are stored in what we call epididymis. Very important. And you don't decrease in size when you don't ejaculate for long. So what usually happen, and this is the same thing that usually happen when you get vasectomy, is the sperms, they grow old. They accumulate years, they grow old, they die, they get recycled. What will happen to the semen now minus the sperms? Now that you know that the sperms will just get recycled, the semen will just, nothing will happen. The glands will just stay there waiting for stimulation to produce. One of such is the prostate gland. It's actually important for you to know that men are usually different from women when it comes to reproduction physiology. Now, like for example, men, once they mature, once they get to puberty, production of sperm starts from that point going all the way until they die, so there is no window. Also, they're kind of, let's say, visual perception. You can send them a text and they're going to get an erection. It's that simple. And I think that's one of the reasons why we usually make a lot of mistakes, because, you get attracted to what you're seeing, and then by the time you realize that you got attracted to the wrong thing, it's long gone. Women usually take a little bit longer for them to start desiring for sex compared to men, because men will have frequent reminders. Like you see, we said they're visual. You just see something, and even if it's a curvaceous cow that's just passing, get an erection. Also, every morning, two things might happen. Either an erection will wake you up, or you'll wake up to an erection. That is, you're talking about a normal person. You're supposed to have an erection each and every morning. And the reason for this is quite simple, because in the morning, that's when you have a spike. When it comes to testosterone, it's highest in the morning. That's one of the biggest reasons. Another one, which is quite a little bit far, is you most of the time usually wake up in a full bladder. I'm sure you've noted that when you go to the washroom to empty your bladder, and I'm talking about when you have a full bladder, fully distended, you usually get an erection gradually to a point where when you're halfway, you have a full erection, to a point you'll have to force the urine through. So this might either, you're forcing the urine to pass through, it's necessary, and maybe you might get a spray, you get several, you know what I'm talking about, man. Anyway, there is a nerve that we call sacral nerve. It will be affected during this process, can be triggered during this process, and that's why you get an erection. So that's another reminder. In the morning, you get your erection. That's the morning bell. You also get an erection when you're emptying your bladder. You also, you're a visual person, so every now and then you're seeing good things passing by, and then you get an erection. So you have a lot of reminders. So you take shorter to crave for sex compared to women who are more of touch. Now, going back to the sperms, we said nothing will happen to the sperms. They're going to be recycled. But before you get to a point of recycling them, the body might feel that, hey, you're keeping them in long, and you start getting wet dreams. They can be a little bit more frequent compared to when you're having regular sex. But this is because, and by the way, wet dreams are not limited to when you are a teenager. They go all the way up to the end. But they reduce over time. The same thing happens to women. They also get wet dreams. But that's a conversation for another day. So when you stay for long without having sexual activities, you might notice that you're getting some wet dreams and there, and this is your body trying to offload some of it. So if you don't get those, then you go to the recycling part where every of those sperms will die and then they get recycled to produce new ones. Nothing goes to waste, by the way. What will happen to your size? Most of the time, nothing will happen unless you're staying for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or you've added a lot of weight. You might find significantly there is a reduction in size and muscle mass down there. I said that, and actually it's actually true, when you tend to not use a certain process in the body has a way of shelving most of it. So there is something called atrophy and something we call hypertrophy. I'll give you an example with muscles. When you go to the gym, you get, you saw muscles. Hypertrophy. But when you don't exercise your muscles, then they shrink. That's what we call atrophy. So the same thing will happen down there. But like I said, this is something that will have to take a long time because you also can be favored by genetics. So you might not even notice something happen. So there's nothing significant that will change when it comes to the size, unless maybe you're going to take like 50 years to not having ever getting some. And to a point where if you're going to go beyond 50 years without having a sexual activity, that means that you don't actually need it anymore. So your body is actually better focusing on other things. Just saying. This one is either going to be clingy or it's going to disappoint you. You stay for long without having sexual activity and then now you want to have sex. You might take 10 seconds of honest work and you just ejaculate and you don't want to go back there. You don't have the mood anymore. Yeah, might sound maybe something that has happened to you. You can see that from your face. But the good thing is it's actually temporary. So it'll just come back. Your line will come back. Just make sure the partner is understanding. Why did I choose this topic? Someone remind me. Well, let's go back to hormones. Let's start with the major one, testosterone. Yeah, we have studies that they are all mixed up, so we don't know what actually is happening over time. We have studies that are suggesting that there's an increase in the amount of testosterone that you have. We have others that are saying that there is a reduction in the amount because of reduced sexual stimulations. But all in all, there is, in my opinion, there is nothing significant about them. But we have several others that are also very important when it comes to sexual activities. We have oxytocin, which is the love hormone. We also have dopamine, which is a reward system hormone. A combination of that will give you sexual pleasure when you meet your partner, and it improves the bonding and so many things around that. So if you miss that, you might start feeling lonely, isolated, sad, lethargy and there. Yep, when you stay for long without having stimulation or that. But then we have masturbation, which is, I said technically and categorically that I don't encourage masturbation because of the fact that it's actually very easily accessible and you're prone to misusing that. It's not bad when it comes to your health, but you might overdo it. It's bad. It's a habit forming thing because of the brains. You have the reward system in the brain. Yep. Now let's go to the claim that I made that you increase chances of getting a girl when you stay for long without having an ejaculation. Now, there was a study which was done on men. They provided their sperms and there was an analysis of the sperms, the X versus the Y chromosomes. And then they abstained for 10 days. And then they provided another specimen, the sperms. And across all those who are participating, there was an increase, a 2% increase in the number of X chromosomes compared to the Y chromosomes. Meaning that, but 2% is not that significant. But scientifically it's actually significant, but health-wise I don't think it's actually something that's worth the hype. I hope you're not going to abstain in an aim of increasing chances of getting a girl, so don't keep your hopes there. 2% is quite not that significant. Diseases. This is actually interesting because now you see in men and women they are slightly different anatomically. When it comes to STIs, cut across. STIs reduce when there is less sexual activities because they are sexually transmitted. But then, when it comes to UTIs, slightly different in ladies, they can end up continue having the same because the nature of their anatomy. They have the anal opening that has Escherichia coli, a leading cause of UTIs, and they have their vagina just next there. Meaning that chances might be that something can happen and the bacteria move to the other side. But for men, totally different. So they have a reduction in both because most of the time men usually get UTIs through sexual activities. It's quite interesting to learn that UTIs can also be transmitted sexually. Now, sexual libido within 1 year, nothing will happen. There might be an increase because, maybe you are used to it. But then if you are not used to it, there is nothing that will happen. But over time, it's going to reduce and go down all the way based on how many years you're going to stay without any sexual activity. Prostate. Do you have an enlargement or a reduction in size, or do you have risk going up of getting the prostate cancer, or they reduce? There's something called BPH, which is benign prostate hyperplasia. Do they go up or do they go low? Now, there was a study which was done on men. There were 30,000. So we had those who were ejaculating 21 times in a month. Let's say that's almost daily. And then we had those who were at most 7 times in a month. Now the results were those who had more than 21 ejaculations in a month had lower risks of getting BPH, prostate cancers. Those who had less, they had a high chances of getting those. So kind of tells us that you need to ejaculate more, at least daily. We don't have a concrete answer yet supporting this, but there is a relationship between having more ejaculations and having lower risk of getting that. So we take that for now until we get high value study. What happens to your body when you stay for long without having any sexual activity? Do you get secondary virginity? And is it actually a thing? What happens to your cycle? What happens to your eggs? What happens to your sex libido? And by the way, if you are on contraceptives, should you remove that if you're planning to abstain, or should you keep it? And what are the effects of removing the contraceptive when you decide to abstain or when you stay for long without having any sexual activity? These are some of the questions you really get in my DMs, and you're going to tackle them, but I know you're as curious as I am. How long have you ever stayed without sex, and what actually happened to your body? What did you feel? We'll be interested to know. Anyway, let's just go directly to the point, because I know we need to tackle a bit more in this video, and wait until you hear what usually happened to men. And this is what you're going to tackle in the next video, so make sure you're subscribed. What will happen to your cycle? Nothing. Your cycle will just stay the same, because it's actually not influenced by whether you're going to have sex or not, in as much as it's part of the whole ecosystem, but nothing will happen to your cycle. If you are not on any contraceptives, you're going to have your cycle as usual. So simply the cycle will continue, your sexual activities will have to catch up later. Another thing you might want to know is men usually desire for sex sooner compared to women, because men are kind of like, let me just look for something that you can relate to. Do you see when you're walking in a certain building and automatically the lights goes on, because the switch has something that we call motion detection? So when something walks, the lights goes on. That will be men. Anything they see, something they perceive, or maybe they are reading, it's actually enough to trigger them to have sexual desires. For women, they are more like the analog switch, where you'll have to go and physically switch it on. So mostly they are more of contact, like they'll have to have physical touch and such for you to trigger their desire for sex. This actually works in favor of women, because they can stay actually for long. But there is a reminder, when they're having ovulation, most of them will have the sexual desires, in as much as it can be masked by a certain pain sometimes they usually get. As a result of this, we've had this conversation, so you know why that pain can be and how you can be able to manage most of it. What happens to your ovaries? Because I remember there was a very, very interesting question that I got, that if I'm not having sex as a lady, does it mean that I'm not releasing eggs, so I get to keep them? Now, you are born with a full set of eggs when you're young. When you get to puberty, they start maturing slowly. Over time, you keep releasing the eggs, and because you have a fixed number, it kind of depletes and diminishes over time. And because you have a fixed period of reproduction, the more you stay without maybe reproducing, you continue depleting them. And this is not dependent on whether you're going to have any sexual activity or not, because regardless of whether you meet your partner or not, you're going to have ovulation, and ovulation is a release of the egg, which will trigger you having the menses. So long as you're getting your menses, it means that you're losing your eggs, and over time you're going to deplete that, and then you're going to get to menopause, and that's when everything stops, the system stops, and then from there estrogens start bringing some issues here and there, because you underproduce it, and then you start having so many things that we're going to talk about in the future, about what usually happens when you get to menopause and how to manage some of the things that usually come along with that. Now let's go to the actual things that will happen when you stay for long without having any sexual activity. Let's go to the first one, which is libido. Now libido is the urge to have sex, and when you're having sex, the drive that you have towards the activity. Now, a tiny group of people will have an increase in libido and the urge and the desire to have sex. But we have a huge majority that over time, if they stay long enough, they are going to outgrow this phase where they are going to feel the urge. The libido kind of dips, so it goes down. This is because of one, the body, the human body, has a very funny way of disregarding something, it's dimming, or putting something redundant when it's actually not being useful anymore. When you're having a sexual activity, so many things will happen to your body. You have hormones that usually produce. We have oxytocin, which is usually the love hormones. We have the reward system hormone, which is dopamine, and some others, but these two, I'm sure you are aware of them. They usually make sex more enjoyable. You get to be connected with your partner, and the same oxytocin is the same that will give that bond between the mother and the child. So it's a very important hormone in the human body. So if you stay for long without having any sexual activity, you kind of tend to have less libido because you're staying for long without stimulation of the sexual physiology. So the body kind of puts the whole of that under the bed. Temporarily, of course, because you can resume that once you get back, but you're going to see some of the things that will happen to your vagina. That's when it comes to like secondary virginity. Psychologically, there is something called sexual frustrations, and this is because, you know, like when we sex with regular sex, usually you get dopamine, you get oxytocin. They are very good when it comes to bonding and all that. If you limit your body from getting that, if you're not getting frequent secretion of such, there's something called sexual frustrations. Yeah, you find that maybe it's the first month, second month, third month's bodies are usually different. You might get you sooner, or maybe take forever to get even to that point. So what will happen is there is that sexual tension that will just accumulate over time, but then it gets to a point where now you feel that you really need to have that. So you start feeling heavy around your labia, your clitoris, your sexual organs, even your breast. You start feeling that you really need something. So this can be relieved by having masturbation, which is something that I actually don't recommend. So either if you are able to ignore that thing completely, or if you can look for another activity that might influence your brains into just going away from the feeling, it'll be good. It'll be better than just masturbating, because masturbation is very accessible and you have a high tendency of getting it as a habit. So you might be addicted to that activity. So just look for something else that can just occupy your brains in the process. When you stay for long without having any sexual activity, and then all of a sudden you meet a partner, now maybe you change your mind, or maybe now you've gotten the person you've been waiting for, and then you want to have a sexual activity. One, you might have tension. That's psychological. You're not going to explain that, but then it might take you long before you get ready. And by getting ready, you know what I actually mean. Or it can even take you longer for you to get orgasm. One thing you have to know is that when there is a sexual activity, we have secretions that usually come around your vagina. You have so many glands there. Okay, not so many. You have several glands there that usually give you the lubrication. You stay for long without even attending to them. There is no secretion. Like I said, your body has a way of keeping things that it's not using, like redundant. Just put them somewhere, or just come back to them later. It will take a little bit longer for them to just go grab them, then try to polish and remove the dust. And okay. So basically what I mean is it can take a little bit longer for the body to get back to the normal state it used to be. So this one, it might take long for you to even get the secretions. When you get frequent stimulations, your body stays almost ready for that activity. So the secretions will just be waiting for even the wind to blow, or even clothing, and even trust me, this is a very interesting topic, and I should do more of this. Before you go to secondary virginity, let's go to diseases. We have two major categories when it comes to sexual health. The first one is UTIs. The second one is STIs. STIs, sexually transmitted. So the ones that you usually acquire when you meet with another partner sexually. That one, they're going to reduce because you are not sexually active. Let's go to UTIs. There can be an increment or a reduction in the cases of UTIs. Increment will be because, one, when you have a sexual activity, your body tends to take you to the washroom frequently to empty your bladder all the time, most of the time actually. This is kind of a reflex, I would say. It helps very much when it comes to flushing out anything that is stuck along the urethra. Another thing is that sex is related to immune system. The more you have sex, the better the immune system you have. We have studies for that, trust me. You can go to PubMed, you can just go and grab some articles here, and then they're going to tell you the same thing, but it's not significant. We have chances that we might have a reduction in UTIs. The reason for that is we have sexually associated UTIs, meaning that during the sexual activity, you have a partner with a UTI, they might give you, or you have bacteria that can be pushed from the anal opening, because those are neighbors anatomically. The vagina and the anal opening, they are close by. Those friends that are living behind there in the anal opening all the way in the gut, we have Escherichia coli. It's a bacteria, a major cause of UTI. So if you push it the other side, you get a UTI. So a reduction in sexual activities means that this risk is kind of eliminated. Before you go to urine incontinence, first of all, let's tackle secondary virginity. Virginity is when you have hymen. It can be broken through sexual activity. It will break the hymen, it's a membrane which is there. Or maybe riding a bike. It's actually one of the causes of non-sexual ways of breaking the hymen. Or it can be you just use a toy. Now, you are 100% sure that you don't have a hymen, so you're not a virgin anymore. But what will happen if you stay for long without having any sexual activity? Will it grow back? No. It's actually not going to grow back, but something will happen. So the walls become a bit thinner and less elastic. And this is what will give you that pain during the penetration when you stayed for long without having any sexual activity. That's what usually makes people think that they've grown or they've become virgin. This is because, there is not much of the lubrication. The walls have thinned over time and you're not elastic. So both of you might feel there is resistance and also pain will be involved. Kind of the same thing that happened when you are breaking your initial virginity. So it's not secondary virginity, it's kind of your body being grumpy, if I may use that word. Urine incontinence. When you stay for long without having sexual activity, you might notice that you are struggling to keep in the urine for long. And sometimes when you cough or sneeze, you might drop some few drops of urine in there. There is something that we call pelvic floor muscles that actually exercise during the sexual activity. And over time, if you don't exercise the muscles, they become weak over time and you find that one, you're not able to keep even, let's say, a small volume of urine in longer, or when you have a lot of it, you end up even maybe wetting yourself. But this happens to a very small number of people, not many of them. You are able to control your urine. Now, what you can do to fix this situation if you're not planning to come back is, okay, I'm thinking coming back as if... Anyway, if you're not planning to go back to sexual activities, you can do something called Kegel. Those are exercises that are meant to exercise the pelvic floor muscles. And how do you do that? It's quite simple. What you do is, do you see when you're urinating and then midstream, or when you're almost, in the middle of you urinating, you just shut them off. You just stop by clenching the muscles. So now do that, but not when you're urinating. Okay, you can even do that when you're urinating, yes, it'll still exercise the same muscles, but you can do that when you don't have anything in your bladder. So just keep doing that. It's called Kegel. One, it makes your vaginal muscles a little bit firmer. It also strengthens your pelvic floor muscles. We also have something we call yoga. It helps there to control incontinence that might come as a result of, even in general incontinence, it helps very much. I don't know whether you noticed, but when you stayed for long without having any sexual activity, something happened. You felt, or even you were cleaner then. Because one, there is no friction going on there, which leads to deposition of epithelial cells, both from the man and also from your vagina. Second, the secretions, one coming from the man, of course, the semen being deposited there. Also, your own secretions that are coming from the glands lining up the vagina. Like, for example, have you ever heard of Bartholin cysts? We are going to have a conversation around that in the next video. Okay, not the next one, because the next will be men, and then I'll find a way of making that video. So you have a reason to subscribe and also make sure the bell is on. So those secretions and deposits are not there anymore, or they are less, so meaning that you have less to deal with, and because your organ is self-cleaning, once it's done with everything, then you feel cleaner, and actually you stay cleaner. And by the way, you have some secretions that you usually get when you're close to getting your ovulation, when you're about to start your menses, and after your menses. Now, when you're about to start your menses, you might find that they are dark, they might be colored in a way because it contains some blood that will come out later. The ones that you get after menses is over, those ones can also be cloudy or darkish because also of the remnants of the blood. It's kind of your system washing off everything that happened during the time when you're getting your blood through. And finally, you're on a family planning method, you're on a contraceptive. One, you are planning to either remove because you're not planning to have any sexual activity in the future or foreseeable future, or you've been not having any sexual activity and you find that it's actually useless to have that because the main goal of having a contraceptive is not making you pregnant, and abstaining is a part of the contraceptive methods. If you're having that or you're opting to just abstain, there is no need for you to have a contraceptive, and especially the hormonal ones that will just mess up your cycle here and there or do some things, and they have side effects. Even the non-hormonal, like the copper IUD, might give you some. Okay, I'm not saying that all of them will have, but they react to people differently. We have those that are very comfortable with a certain method, and we have others that are going to get very severe side effects from any, whether they're hormonal or non-hormonal. Abstinence is actually natural. If you can be able to achieve this, it's my highest or the highly recommended type of contraceptive method. Now, what happens when you withdraw the type of contraceptive that you had? Now, it will depend. If you're using that, you are very normal, it was not affecting you negatively, the side effects are not that adverse, you'll just go back to your normal cycle. Nothing will happen. Like, even if you're having depot, which is something that usually discourage people from getting, if you're having that, after the effects just wear off, you are back to you being fertile, and the cycles go back to normal. Remember, we have some that once you start taking them, especially the hormonal, you'll find that you usually get hard time to replicate yourself during any sexual activity. When you stop that, when you stop and the effects wear off from the body, you're back to being normal, wetting, and replicating yourself enough. But then you'll have to be very sure that you're going to abstain, because now the risk of being pregnant is actually high, because now you're back to natural methods. Yeah. So like I said, this video is for educational purposes only. So when you stay following without sexual activity and then you meet your partner, make sure first of all they watch this video, because I want them to understand that it's going to be uncomfortable initially, but then it's going to improve over time. And again, don't forward this video to someone just for the mere reason of making them get afraid of their choices, or maybe you want them to change their minds. No. So respect the choices and let's have fun in the comment region. Just tell me what happened. How long did you stay without having sexual activities, and actually what happened to your body? You get ejaculation in masturbation and also in partnered sex, but for some reason ejaculation due to masturbation is bad, but that due to having a partner is deemed good. Where do we draw the line? And again, what are some of the effects of having masturbation, and how do you stop if it's actually affecting you? And by the way, is it bad or good, bearing in mind that we have studies that have picked boys having fun with themselves inside the uterus? So that we move on, ejaculation due to partnered sex and also masturbation, it's not different between those two, because you are going to trigger the same mechanism that will give you semen, unless you have some magic where semen is not coming out. So in those situations, both of them, the same mechanism will be involved, in as much as we have studies pointing out that you might have a slightly higher amount of semen when you have a partnered sex compared to when you're having masturbation. Now, the dynamics of the two are different, because you'll find that in masturbation, there might be something that you're using to help you either visualize or have the feeling that will drive the erection, especially in men. And when it comes to partnered sex, stimulation might be higher in partnered sex compared to when you're doing masturbation, and especially if it's solo masturbation, that's you're doing it on your own, there is no one, because we have partners who can help each other in having masturbation. I'll put some links in the reference section of the description box of this video to the references of some of the studies that were done that were able to observe boys having fun with themselves in the uterus. So they were just having, okay, I don't want to call it masturbation, they were having fun. Let's call it that way so that it doesn't sound weird. So that we get this out of the way, what are the good sides and the bad sides? Let's start with the good sides. What are the benefits of masturbation? First thing, you have to understand that this is actually accessible. So financially and economically, this is a little bit cheaper. Away from that, I'm not an... Okay. Anyway, you don't usually get UTIs. Okay, the rate of getting UTIs and STIs are usually lower compared to when you have a partner, which compounds or even adds the risk of you acquiring STIs and UTIs. And I keep saying that UTIs are UTIs, STIs are STIs, sexually transmitted. But we have UTIs that can be transmitted sexually, but they don't change. They don't change from being UTIs to STIs, but they can be sexually transmitted, and it doesn't change them. It reduces chances of you having them, because it's you and your clean hands. I'm assuming they are clean. Or maybe the tools that you're using are not shared and they are clean and you clean them. And maybe you can use povidone in case maybe you're using tools. You can use povidone to clear everything. Or maybe jig. But okay, the residues, I prefer povidone. Or maybe hydrogen peroxide. That is if it's a must. Because I'll give you my view of masturbation, whether you should or you shouldn't, or my view of it at the end of it. But let's go to the second one. It prevents unwanted or unplanned pregnancies. So you don't have a kid that you are going to have as a result of you not having planned for that kid. We also have so many studies that have picked benefits of having ejaculations either through masturbation or through sexual intercourse. The draining of the prostate will reduce chances that you might get prostate in the future. So the group, we had groups that were divided into those who are having frequent ejaculations and those who are not having frequent ejaculations. Those who are having it more had a lower risk of getting prostate cancer. It's not 100% definitive, but we have theories like the stagnation theory that suggests that we have fluid through stagnate inside the prostate, and the higher the frequency of removing them, the lower the risk of acquiring defects due to having carcinogen that is stuck in your prostate. So you reduce chances of having prostate cancer by draining that fluid which is stagnating there. If you're not getting a partner, maybe masturbation can help in doing the same thing, but then I prefer a partner. You know why? Because these are two people who are having fun from a single activity. If you're alone, it's a single activity being enjoyed by only one person. If you're two, you're also bonding, and so many things are going on here. So why not get a partner if you can? In as much as you also increase chances of getting STIs and UTIs, especially if you are in a row. If what they say is true. Anyway, partner sex is actually better because of you have relationship. They also get a chance to maybe get a blackmail out of them. Something like, I need chocolate. Or else, fertility is not affected at all unless you are overdoing it. If you're overdoing it, you might get erectile dysfunction. Okay, we are going to see that in the next segment. But then fertility is not actually affected because you see, and let's jump to men, because you produce every second, you produce around 1500 sperms per second. So every second, 1500, 3000, 4500, 6000, where do we go next? 7500, all the way. It goes like by the time I started this video, you are almost approaching 1 million, just in those ranges. So you have a lot of sperms. Something that might be affected by this is if you are having, let's say, 10 times in a day. Semen is a composition of several things. Let's narrow down to zinc. Zinc will help very much in the integrity of the DNA of the sperms. Now, if you are, let's say, masturbating, you're ejaculating every now and then, you're not having good reserves, you're not replenishing zinc, you might end up having lower quality sperms in the future, but this will take you so many times of ejaculations in a day and for a longer period of time. Now, let's say instead of having a partner somewhere hidden, maybe a backup or an insurance policy somewhere, putting that in quotes because it's a joke. Instead of having that, how about you? Masturbation is actually better because now it's cheaper. It's not going to add the risk in this family. You know how many of those things that usually circulate. You go get your partner, has another partner, it's a web. Now, instead of having that, how about you cut everything short by just, 3 seconds of doing it? It will prevent so many diseases that usually occur out there, because inside that web, should just only one person have something which is, let's say, an STI, it can spread all through and it will come all the way into the house. Now, let's go to the negative side, because this is another side that need to be mentioned. The first one is you might have reduced sensitivity, because you see, you control the grip. Unlike in an actual partner, where sometimes they can relax, especially if they are well prepared after foreplay, you can increase the grip, and this increases the friction, and the same way it's going to increase the chances that you're going to nut faster. If this is happening each and every time, you're going to desensitize the nerves that will be responsible for that friction. They detect friction and they help in ejaculation. So when there is desensitization of this, one, you might start having erectile dysfunction. That is, you're not able to maintain an erection for long, or you can take years before ejaculating, or you can take seconds. Within seconds, you are done. So it will depend with the person. It can be all those areas. There is a slight reduction in the amount of semen that you have. This means if you're doing it frequently, there's a reduction in volume, which is not ideal when you're trying to get a baby. The other thing is it's prone to, you can acquire an addiction from it, because it's highly accessible. You can easily access it so long as you have a closed door and you have something that you can use to reduce friction. You're good to go. Another thing is sometimes people usually use that as a coping mechanism. Like if you're stressed, you just close the door, or maybe you just go to the washroom. This can become a habit, especially if whatever you are running from is something which will be frequent. People have even reported injuries when they are urinating. They feel some kind of pain in their urethra. This is due to, you remember, the grip. You increase the grip and the frequency of it. So if you do it every now and then, you might end up having those injuries, in as much as they are also reported in actual partnered sex. So now, how do you stop? Number one, it's quite easy. One, get a regular partner, because most of those who usually do masturbation, most of them don't have a partner. They're using this as a replacement for a partner. So get a partner. Chances will be extremely high that you're going to stop once you have them around, because you're not going to find the need. Number two, avoid being alone, because chances will be very high that an intrusive thought will cross you. At some point, I'm not attacking introverts. I'm an introvert myself, so I can understand that you can have intrusive thoughts, but if maybe you can have control over them, if you can be able to control them, then you can just have fun with not having masturbation in yourself, and avoid anything that can trigger you having that. And that trigger will be just go out there, try to look for something that you can be doing outdoor. Get a camera, go to Karura Forest, just get out of the house and get to a place where, yes, you might meet people, which is something I know you hate, but it's better when you're out there than in the house when you have chances that you might get an intrusive thought, and it will be very easy for you because you are alone in the house. Number three, uninstall Telegram. Okay, it's a joke, but we have so many groups there, so many channels there that are supplying in a kind of a leaked, okay, bringing Kenyans together. This has been something that everyone is almost doing, and this usually start from somewhere. X, they go there, hey, someone leaked, do what? Go to this channel in Telegram and you're going to find everything. So you get there, you get stuck. You find a place where you'll be having fun and you're there all the time. So it's also a trick. You can uninstall it, and sometimes it's usually very hard to avoid coming across such, but it'll be less frequent in as much as right now on X. I don't know what's actually going on. You just open your X account and everything in the feed are people who want to not wear clothes. And they can be a trigger. So maybe you can uninstall things that will remind you, or will tell you that there is something that you actually need to do. Or maybe they're going to remind you. Or maybe, okay, that would be a bad advice, by the way. Sorry. I'll cut this. Cut that section, remove it from the video. Also, when someone sends you a read once image on WhatsApp, it's a trigger. That might be a trap. And especially if you know their past history, it can be a trap. It can be a trap. It has been a trap. Why though, anyway? In conclusion, personally, I don't support masturbation. That's on a personal basis. It's not that it usually affects you or you are held negatively. No, it doesn't, unless you overdo it. So this is upon you to know, to weigh. Is it good? Is it preventing you from getting UTIs and also getting unwanted pregnancies? Or is it spiritually not good? It will depend with what you're going to view it as. If you feel that this is something that is actually affecting your life, stop. Don't do it. If it's not affecting your life and it's going to prevent you from getting something, which is by like having unwanted pregnancies or unplanned pregnancies or getting UTIs and STIs, I think you can consider it, but don't overdo it. You just produce 1,500 sperms, and now 3,000, and now 4,500, and now 6,000, 7,500. What I'm trying to mean here is per second, you produce 1,500 sperms. By the time you're done with this video, you might be approaching millions of them. They should tell you that in a day, you produce close to 130 million sperms. In one ejaculation, you give out 200 to 300 million sperms. Ironically, you just only need one to make a baby. Let's assume Brian is in Equatorial Guinea and decides to have sex on a daily basis. What will happen to him? By now we covered what will happen to men when they stay for long without sex, and also women. Today we're going to look at what will happen to you when you have sex on a daily basis, and I'm going to replace that. I'll focus on ejaculation. Ejaculation can be through sex or masturbation. So when you do this on a daily basis, what will happen to your body? It should be interesting because, like you have seen, you produce a lot of sperms. But do you have a limit? Now let's start with semen. What will happen to semen? Remember, the king is in there. Those are the sperms. Now the sperms, like we said, there is no shortage of them. You are going to have so many of them, so nothing mostly will happen. But now let's do some quick maths. In a single day, that's 24 hours, you will produce around 130 million sperms. In one ejaculation, you give out 200 to 300 million sperms. Meaning that one ejaculation will slightly go beyond what you're going to produce in a day, in as much as you're going to make up for that in some few minutes later, not some few minutes, some few hours later. So you're going to notice a slight reduction in the production. But don't worry about this, because when you go to the WHO recommendations for the values or the parameters that are required for semi-analysis beyond which you are normal and below which you are abnormal, it's actually going to still be on the upper side. But there is something that can affect your fertility, and we are going to see that when it comes to where do you get actually the other compositions or the other components of the semen. Like we said, semen will contain several components, and they come from different parts of the reproductive system in men. It's teamwork. Now let's get away from the testes. We are done with the sperms. We have bulbourethra, which will give the mucoid appearance of the semen. This is to facilitate reduction in friction. This is not actually physics, so it makes the way slimy and the sperms can easily swim through. So what will happen to this will be a slight reduction in the composition of that sliminess. When you stay a little bit longer without any sexual intercourse, it might look thicker and slimier because you have more of that. Now let's go to the second gland, seminal vesicle. This will give several things. Ignore those. They are quite important, by the way, but let's go to fructose. Fructose is quite important because this one will provide the energy. Actually, the preferred source of energy for sperms is fructose. This will come from fruits. This means that men benefits more from fruit, and actually directly from fruits, compared to women. I'm not saying that it's actually not important for women to take fruits. If the plan is to have that on a daily basis, make sure that you're on top of your fructose. Also, something else that we can never ignore are prostaglandins from the same glands. Usually go and prevent the immune system of the lady from attacking the sperms. Remember, the sperms are the king and the queens here because you have X and Y. And also we have several things that sperms usually do to the lady. We're going to talk about that in a separate video. Quite interesting. Get subscribed, by the way. Anyway, gland number 3, this will be prostate. It will give also components that will go into the semen. One of such will be zinc. This will be affected, by the way, if you have sex on a daily basis. Remember, we said that fructose will be affected, and this will affect the longevity of the sperms, because now if you don't provide enough energy for the sperms, they might not be able to swim as well because there is not enough energy, and also even staying longer might be an issue because you don't have enough of the resources that are required to keep them alive. Now let's go to the zinc that will come from the prostate. Zinc usually stabilizes the DNA containing chromatin. And this is supposed to tell you one thing, that if you deplete zinc in your body without replenishing enough of that, you're going to be infertile. And this is the reason. Number 1, the fragility of the sperms, meaning that something slight like the change in pH, you know, you're passing through urethra, urine usually pass through there, that it is so acidic. In as much as you have phosphatases that will come and neutralize that area, it might not be as perfect as will be required, meaning that a slight change might affect the sperms because they're so fragile. And also remember, you have lactobacilli in vagina, making that area to be very acidic. I know there will be a red carpet because after foreplay, the lady will have secretions that will neutralize her area, creating a red carpet for the sperms, so that they can pass there comfortably without being affected. But a slight change, like slightly drying up, might affect the sperms and they might be fragile, meaning that this is going actually to affect your fertility. This is supposed to tell you that if your plan is to have sex on a daily basis, okay, ejaculation on a daily basis can go both ways, either masturbation or sex. I highly discourage having masturbation on a daily basis because of the reasons we've already shared. Sex, on the other side, okay, maybe it's an incentive, maybe it's a reward, it's a blackmail, maybe it's a weapon of mass destruction, or maybe it's a threat, whatever. But sex is so good, by the way. Sex is the reason why we are here, because it existed before IVF and other things. The second thing will be affected by having less zinc due to frequent ejaculation and not replenishing the zinc reserves in your body. The production of the sperms will be affected. There might be a reduction in The one, quality, by the way, because DNA fragmentation will be affected by less zinc in the body. Like I said, if you want to have sex on a daily basis, make sure you have enough of zinc. And holistically, health-wise, you need to eat better. When everything else is kept constant, nothing will happen to your fertility. You'll be able to impregnate someone on a daily basis for as long as you're going to live on this planet. You can be able to do that. Thing number 2 that will happen to your body when you ejaculate on a daily basis. This is dependent on the method that you use to arrive at this, which is ejaculation. When you do masturbation on a daily basis, the first thing will be the method. Definitely, you're going to get something that you're going to rub yourself against. When you do this on a daily basis, sensitivity might reduce, and you might find that people usually get to have premature ejaculation. So you might find that your lady is complaining. Others will take forever. It's a very interesting topic. By the way, we're going to focus on masturbation in itself. YouTube actually don't like such topics. I know they can be quite uncomfortable, and that's actually the reason I'm doing that, because they are quite uncomfortable. So not many people are talking about this, and we need to have a conversation around this so we get to understand exactly what's going on with our bodies so that we can make better use of our bodies when we have the right information. That's the reason I'm here, and that's the reason why I would want you to like and subscribe. Now, branching off from masturbation to actual sex, I'm assuming this is Mogaka and Mwende. They want to have this on a daily basis. Yes, sensitivity will reduce, yes, but not significantly compared to when you are getting masturbation. Slightly. And again, it's bothersome. Thing number 3 that will happen, response time. Now, this goes 2 ways. The first one is where majority are, is you stimulate your body each and every time. Next time it's kind of alert, so it will take less time for you to be sexually prepared, especially ladies. Others will go the other route. It takes a little bit longer for the body to be ready for the act, because kind of bored. Kind of like the same thing that when you go to the washroom and maybe you are doing a number 2, there is the smell. If you stay there long enough, there is nothing changing, assuming that there is no air freshener, you will find that the smell kind of disappears. This is because you're getting used to the stimuli. The same thing might happen here, where you find that due to the same stimuli each and every time, the brains will tend to ignore that stimuli, so you tend to even invest more to make someone sexually aroused next time, the following day, because this is on daily basis. So yeah. Thing number 4, fertility. I know we mentioned something on fertility when it comes to the semen volume and composition. Zinc, don't forget about zinc. And also fructose. But we have several other things that might happen when you get to have masturbation on a daily basis each and every time. Remember, this is very, very accessible. You might get erectile dysfunction. This is excessive masturbation. And from the analogy that I gave, repeated stimulation might make your brains ignore that thing. When you have so many messages going to the brain with the same information, your brains kind of get tired and put everything on silent mode. So you find that either you're struggling to get an erection, or when you get an erection, you're not keeping it long enough, or you start getting premature ejaculations. Thing number 5, prostate cancer. I know we've covered some of this, that when you ejaculate more, 21 times in a month, and actually we've looked at a study which was focusing on 21 and more ejaculations in a month will lower the risk of having prostate cancer. There is a theory that kind of tried to explain the reason why when you ejaculate, you reduce the chances. This is to try to unlodge whatever is in there to give room for production from new material from there. So unclogging the system to try to make it better and cleaner. Don't know how true this is, but we are going to have a dedicated video on prostate. I think there we're going to have more information, and by now you understand how important the prostate is. It's a major contributor when it comes to the fertility, because without zinc and some other components that usually come from the prostate, you end up reducing the quality of the sperms and the quality of the semen that you're giving out. So yes, there is a correlation between having more ejaculations and having lower risks, but we are not sure yet. So take that with a grain of salt. Okay, with a bucket of salt. Thing number 6, diseases. Now we have STIs and we have UTIs. The more you get to ejaculate or to have sex, you increase chances of getting UTIs and STIs. And this is one of the reasons that people usually prefer masturbation to sex, because masturbation, you're not going to get STIs and UTIs, but in sex you increase chances of the same. This still does not make me recommend masturbation to you. Get to have sex. we'll leave out masturbation. Now let's go to sex. UTIs might go high. Remember, UTIs might not necessarily come from sex, especially when it comes to ladies. Hygiene can also contribute, and you can also get that from them. Sexually, STIs the same, might go high. Let's take a scenario like that in Equatorial Guinea. Now you get to meet so many partners along the way, you increase chances of getting STIs and UTIs also, especially as a man. Thing number 7. Okay, we say that you're going to talk about women in a separate video. But anyway, when you deposit your semen in the vaginal canal, in addition to you can potentially make them pregnant, what are the things, what are the other effects that sperms will have on a woman's body? Because I've seen people talking about, hey, it will make your hips grow. It'll do this to your body. It'll make you gain weight. Are they true? We are going to, okay, yeah, this is blackmail. This is how blackmail looks like. Okay, we're going to talk about all that and what will happen and if that is actually true in the separate video. Anyway, I'm not doing this on purpose. It's because I don't want to put so much information in one video and you end up getting bored along the way to make the video so long, and I want to make it shorter and sweet for you to understand. Try to invest in making it a little bit funny for you to try to enjoy along the way, because I don't want you to drop halfway. I want you to enjoy, in as much as I know that you're going to have issues with YouTube each and every time because of the topics that I'm choosing nowadays. In conclusion, keeping everything constant, nothing will happen to your fertility. If you can have even 2 times in a day, nothing much will happen, so long as you provide your body with the resources that you need in that semen. Semen, we say it's a composition of so many things. Anyway, if you loved this video, you might as well like the video. We talked about what will happen to your body when you stay for long without having sexual intercourse, males and females. And if you like what you're doing, you can as well subscribe at it so that you get to be notified. See you in the next video. Brian has 2 heads. He's not a fan of using both of them at the same time because most of the time it doesn't turn out that well. One of the head has no brains and tends to dominate in a certain particular activity. Now his lady trusts whatever head Brian is using during that particular activity. On this episode of Neglected Medical Topics, what should you do immediately after unprotected sexual intercourse? And we're going to look at 8 things that you can do. And I'm talking about a female and a male. And before we start, what is that one thing that you are led to do by the head that doesn't have the brains? There is a fancy name for that, post-nut clarity. Should be fun. Now, the first thing is inspecting the crime scene, and this goes both ways. You look for anything physical on the organ that can tell whether this guy is having either genital warts or HSV or boils. Now, for HSV, herpes simplex virus, you might find that some crusts or some lesions or blisters that will contain fluid inside. Also for the HPV, which is where you get the warts, you might find that there is no that liquid. It's slightly different. I'll try to put images here and try to say, I'm not sure whether YouTube will like that anyway. For HSV and HPV, there is nothing much you can do about that once you acquire that infection. The least you can do here is at least to know where you actually got it from. Now, if you give it a side eye and you discover that you have some boils down there and you are there, definitely you might acquire the same. So the least you can do is just going to a hospital and getting antibiotics for the same so that you don't get that infection. Bacterial infections are usually preventable. Viral, we have very few that you can get a prophylaxis for. Well, at it, you can try to assess the general mood, whether it's motivated or less motivated or it's just sad. Oh, sorry. Okay. Now the second thing is tests. Take advantage of a situation that usually happen after sex, whereby there is relaxation of the pelvic floor muscles. So during this time, she's to the washroom and back. Take advantage of that urine and test for pregnancy. That test is actually 50 bob, 50 Kenyan shillings. So 50 cents in US dollars. So just do that. Now, 2 things can happen here. She's already pregnant. This means you are the new uncle in town. Second can be she's not pregnant. If she's not, 2 things. Is it during her fertility window or outside her fertility window? Now, if it's within her fertility window, 2 things here. Is it during and slightly after ovulation, or it's before ovulation? If it's before ovulation, then you can take an E-pill, emergency pill at this point, and she's not going to become pregnant. If it's during her ovulation or slightly after ovulation, 2 things here. You sit down and pray and it works. because most of the time pills do not work during this period after ovulation, slightly after ovulation. So you sit down, that's number one. You sit down and pray and it works, so she's not pregnant. Or you pray and it doesn't work and you are the new dad in town. Congratulations. Number two, if this is outside her fertility window, you can just go home comfortably and make sure you tell don't. The second test that you should do is a HIV test, assuming you don't know each other's status at this point. And this is the reason I usually prefer you start, first of all, think with this head before you shift to the other one. Now, two things can happen here. One, positive, that's when you go for a prophylaxis. This is PEP, before 72 hours are over. PEPs, this is post-exposure prophylaxis. You take those drugs, you're not going to get HIV. It can be that they are negative, he or she is negative. Now, if that's the scenario here, you're not out of the woods yet, because we have two scenarios here where someone can test negative and they are positive. One, which is a little bit favorable, is when that person is actually, they know they are HIV positive, they've been taking ARVs so well to a point where even the antibodies don't find anything to do in the system, so decline. So when you test that using the normal kits, you find that they're negative. The good thing about this one is also the chances of infecting other people will reduce significantly. Now, there is another scenario whereby this is the most dangerous, the most infectious stage during the windows period. This is when the body doesn't actually know that you have HIV. You have a lot of those viruses in the body, but the immune system is not even aware that they are there. The most infectious, it will test negative using the normal kits. Unless you go with your partner and you get tests such as we have ELISA, we have PCR methods, which they are quite expensive, but they are better than this other test here. Or you can just use protection once you meet your partner, and then you take time, like 3 months. After those 3 months, you'll find that the body has already identified that there is something new in the body. You have antibodies that you can test that person, and they turn out to be positive for HIV. If that person is not there to be tested, or maybe they decline to be tested, the best thing that you can do is just taking PEPs. Just go get the drugs, take them for 28 days. It's better safe than sorry. Number 3, consent. Was it given or not? If it was given, so two people who are having fun, go ahead and have fun. And remember who is paying the rent to that house. And it will depend. Is it an away match or a home match? Anyway, let's go to the other one. If the consent was not given, don't do anything. Don't shower. Don't do anything at all. Just go report. And then after reporting, directly go to the hospital for collection of evidence. Actually, we have emergency numbers that you can call to report such cases, and we have dedicated police departments that will take care of such scenarios. So one thing I want you to do is don't shower and don't tamper with anything that was there. The bed sheets, leave them that way. Don't shower. Whatever clothes that you are wearing, don't change. Just go to the police station with that, and then go to the hospital for collection of any evidence that might help in the investigations. Number 4, urinate. This is quite beneficial, especially for men, because urethra will be used for both for passing semen and also passing urine. So by urinating, whatever might have lodged inside, like bacteria, might be dislodged out. It's not 100% way, because we have fimbriae in bacteria, meaning that it can use those to stick to the walls of the urethra. But those that will not have stuck to the wall might not get a chance to do that, because you'll push them out through urine. At the same time, take in more water so that you urinate more. Ladies, in as much as the activity will be in the vaginal canal, not in the urethra, they are very close. So chances will be that some of them will be lodged inside, and your urethra is quite short. So getting a UTI or bladder infection is quite easy because of the urethra. It's quite short. So try to urinate and drink a lot of water. In as much as due to relaxation of the pelvic floor muscle, you will tend to go to the washroom quite frequent. It's a reflex action. Number 5, was he having a helmet on that other head that doesn't have brains? If he did, is it still intact? If it's still intact, then he needs to know, or he needs to evaluate whether is this his place. Is it a home or an away match? If it's home match, you can just go to the washroom, shower, and then come sleep. If it's an away match, you need to decide, are you the one who's paying the rent? If you're the one who's paying the rent, then you can just go shower, come sleep. If you're not, If it's not intact, then you need to evaluate the situation, damage control. You do the things that we mentioned up there, like testing and getting to know if this is during a fertility window, if it's safe to still take e-pills. And by the way, there's this other one, Post-coital, which promises that even after ovulation, it's able to prevent you from getting pregnant. I don't know how true this is, but I'm usually very skeptical about e-pills. They most of the time don't work after ovulation. Number 6, for the few of you who decides to use farm tools and equipments for all the wrong reasons, go ahead and wash them and disinfect them. We have alcohol that you can use. It will take care of most of them, 70% alcohol. You also have povidone, which is my personal favorite. You can buy that from any pharmacy. Just go buy that and wash the tools that you are misusing. You can buy that one or even use Jik. It's quite effective to wash your farming equipment waiting for the next planting season, and especially if you share the tools. This will go a long way into preventing the spread of any infection should there be any. And even sharing normal flora can cause an infection in another person, but that's a topic for another day. Number 7, shower. And don't forget to use a mouthwash, especially for those who decided to use the wrong toothbrush or the wrong dental floss. I don't want you to introduce a new strain of bacteria in your mouth, someone else, normal flora. We don't want to introduce that into your mouth. I've seen some of you kissing your kids or maybe your friends or other people out there. I don't want to make it gross. So shower, freshen up. Number 8, you left the crime scene, and this is the aftermath. 2 to 3 days after, and you discover you're having a discharge or getting itchiness. The discharge can be smelly or maybe colored. It's high time you go to a hospital to evaluate what flavor of UTI or STI you acquired so that you can get proper medication after that, proper treatment. Make sure you also notify your partner so that they can also seek medication. We have some STIs and UTIs that can just stay somewhere hidden in males and some others in women. It's quite important for them to also get treated for the same so that it doesn't spread and also it doesn't get to affect them negatively, because you know we have some STIs and UTIs that can render someone infertile.